Eliza had always felt that the forest called to her, but on this night its voice was darker, whispering her name between the trees. Eliza wandered into the forest long after the sun had slipped away. She wasn't supposed to be out there, not at night, but she loved the thrill of searching for wild mushrooms, the kind that only bloomed beneath the moonlight. Her grandmother once told her that the night mushrooms tasted sweeter, but also carried secrets. As she moved deeper, the woods grew strangely quiet. No birds, no crickets, just the sound of her boots crunching on damp leaves. A lantern's glow stretched thin against the tall trees, flickering as if the darkness pressed too close. Eliza spotted them then, pale mushrooms clustered around the roots of an oak. Their caps shimmered faintly, almost glowing, as though they were alive. She plucked a few, brushed off the dirt, and without hesitation, tasted one. At first, nothing, just an earthy bitterness, but then the forest shifted, the air grew heavy, and the trees seemed to lean closer. A lantern sputtered, and from the silence came the faint sound of drums. The mushroom's taste lingered bitter on her tongue, but then something shifted. The forest no longer felt like the one she knew. The air grew damp and heavy, as if she had stepped into another world. Eliza lifted her lantern higher, but its glow seemed weaker, swallowed by the shadows pressing in from every side. The trees bent unnaturally, their branches curling like claws overhead. Each step she took echoed as though the ground beneath her had grown hollow. And then she heard it again. Faint, steady, unmistakable. Drums. A slow rhythm, distant at first, but pulsing through the soil beneath her boots. Her breath quickened. She turned in circles, lantern trembling in her hand, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere. Just as she steadied herself, a whisper brushed against her ear. Not the wind. Words. She couldn't understand them, yet they slid into her mind like cold water. She froze. Between the trees she thought she saw them, shapes low to the ground, moving in silence, watching, waiting. Eliza's lantern flickered, then sputtered out. She was swallowed by darkness, left with only the pale glow of the strange mushrooms in her hand. Her pulse pounded in her ears, but beneath it the drums grew louder. From the shadows, figures steamed forward. Bare feet pattered silently on the forest floor, their faces painted in ash and ochre, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They wore cloaks of bark and moss, as though they had grown straight from the earth itself. Eliza stumbled backward, her breath catching in her throat. The tribe moved in a slow circle around her, their heads tilted, whispering words she still couldn't understand. The sound of their voices wasn't like speech, it was more like chanting, rising and falling in rhythm with the drums. One figure broke away from the circle, taller than the rest, with feathers woven into tangled hair. They approached her. In their hand was a carved wooden mask, its surface cracked and blackened as though scorched by fire. The leader raised it toward Eliza's face, and she felt her body lock in place. She couldn't move, couldn't even scream. The forest itself seemed to lean closer, holding its breath as the mask hovered inches from her skin. The leader's mask hovered over Eliza's face, and with a sharp motion it was pressed against her skin. She expected wood, cold, solid, but instead it felt alive. The surface pulsed faintly, as if it were breathing. A searing heat spread across her cheeks, down her throat, filling her chest. Her vision blurred, and suddenly the forest spun. The tribe's chanting grew louder, a rising tide of whispers that seemed to crawl into her very bones. She tried to cry out, but her voice was gone. The mushrooms she had eaten burned like fire in her stomach. She could see the tribe swaying in rhythm, their eyes fixed on her, waiting, expecting. And then she saw it, in the reflection of the leader's hollow eyes. She wasn't Eliza anymore. Her face was painted like theirs, her body cloaked in moss, her voice joining their chant without her control. The fire crackled in the distance, though she hadn't lit one. She realized with dawning horror she wasn't standing in the circle, she was part of it. When Eliza's eyes opened, dawn was breaking. She was lying on the forest floor, a lantern beside her, still unlit. For a moment she thought it had all been a dream.